Hello and welcome everybody, Kicker of Elves here. Hope everybody's having a good morning, afternoon, evening, night, whatever time of day it is, hope you are doing well. Today we're going to talk about the best card in Marvel Snap for the November 2025 season that we're in right now. Best card in the game. Is it Human Torch? Is it Merlin? Is it Cerebro? Cerebro is a world champ, it's gotta be Cerebro. No, it's none of those. The best card in Marvel Snap right now is Juggernaut. Juggernaut is a 4/5. On reveal, move away all enemy cards played here this turn, including unrevealed cards. Juggernaut is the best card in the game. You are going to steal so many cubes by understanding this card and adding it to your deck, and it's incredible. First and foremost, one thing I love about Juggernaut, it doesn't really have to do with its competitive ability, but it's in Series 3. This isn't a card that you have to go out and spend 6,000 tokens, wait for it to rotate into your Series 5 shop. I'm like, all right, I've only got 18k tokens, and I really like the way Prowler looks. I guess I'm going to get Juggernaut. 95% of you watching this video probably already have Juggernaut in your collection. You just need to be using it more. So, why is Juggernaut so fantastic beyond the fact that he's a cheap card to acquire? He is, by virtue of being the best card in the game, the best tech card in the game. Some people want to say that Juggernaut is not a tech card. It's a tech card. It's interacting with your opponent and messing up their game plan in a way that's not just giving you points. It's a tech card. It is going to answer most threats in the current November 2025 metagame. Anytime your opponent wants to have their cards in a specific position, or they are behind in one location and think they're going to win that with a turn 6 play or activation, Juggernaut says, that's not happening, your cards are not going to be there, they're going to be one of the 2 other locations, and that's tough. I just got 4 cubes from you, on to the next game. Juggernaut at 4/5, even though he used to be a 3/3, 4/5 is a nice little spike of power. You need to win that location on points with Juggernaut, so every little bit counts. At a 4, he is still cheap enough. He's not Cosmic Ghost Rider, he's not Enchantress, which are 5-cost cards, or 6-cost card like Goliath. He is cheap enough that you can still weave in a meaningful play alongside him on turn 6 when you play this card. This is a turn 6 play. This is not a card you're going to be playing out before then, unless things get very weird, in which case, I don't really know what's going on. You're desperately trying to win that Asgard location, I suppose. But you can play a Craven alongside him if you're in a move deck, if you're knocking him away, or the Cloak that you had because you played Hellied on 5. You can play him alongside a Quake, a Scarlet Witch, a Jeff, a Demon from your Hood plays, a cheapen cost from a super reduced card from Iron Patriot if you got Quinja on the board. There are so many good cheap cards, Merlin spells that you can just weave out alongside him on a turn 6 play. So even though he is going to be the star of your turn 6, the big surprise that generally is going to win you the game, he's not the only thing you're doing. Great component there. And because of that, many decks, many of the prime meta decks right now, can either afford to run Juggernaut or just actively want to embrace that Juggernaut tech game plan over greedier cards. I think you want to run Juggernaut in the move deck over Aranya. You don't need that extra point proc. You've got plenty of ways to get Torch huge. You want to have some tech options. Juggernaut is not a package. Hood, Sentry, and Nihilus. That's a package things want to run. There's the Zombie package. There's Storm War Machine Legion as a package. There are so many little packages that you can put into different decks and build things around. Juggernaut is not a package, and if he is a package unto himself. He's a single card. You put him in the right deck, and he is going to just crush things and win you games. You're going to climb to infinite quicker, you're going to push the infinite leaderboard harder, you're going to get your infinity borders, and it's all thanks to Juggernaut and the right kinds of decks. Because ultimately, these big meta decks, these big contenders, so many decks can easily adapt to a win one lane with a bunch of points that sometimes can be uninteractable, and then steal another lane with some bodies, and then a Juggernaut win that's going to crush it. So those are kind of the core principles behind what makes Juggernaut so good, but that's just talking about the card. Lots of people can make specific arguments for why cards like Merlin or Human Torch or others that are the best cards in the game. I think there are 2 big considerations for the metagame as a whole that makes Juggernaut the best card in November 2025 right now, and let's talk about the first one. Tech, for the most part, has been obliterated. Since September, Second Dinner, the Marvel Snap devs, have been taking big swings at tech cards. During the September season, there was actually a kind of like joke imbalance patch where it was like in robot language, where pretty much every tech card in the game got taken down a peg. And now here we are in November, and many of those changes have stuck through. Shang-Chi, Enchantress, Shadow King, Mercury, Cosmic Ghost Rider, Alioth, and more have all either been affected by that original nerf from the September patch, or have been nerfed since then. There is clearly and this, first and foremost, let me just say, I love that this is the direction they're starting to go in. There was way too long where there was just this tech slop, ongoing Zabu. I'm going to play Shang-Chi and Enchantress in the final turn of the game to blow things up. You're just being policed by these tech cards. Glenn Jones, in an interview on the Snapshot, which was KM Best Old podcast with Brendan Patrick. Loved that podcast. Maybe one day it'll come back. Probably not. They had Glenn Jones on. He was talking about, like, this was the Loki release week, so a little over 2 years ago now. And they were talking about how Loki made it so you weren't seeing Shang-Chi as much because you're giving your opponent a cheap Shang-Chi. And Glenn did a little fist bump when KM pointed that out, or Brendan pointed that out. And I loved that. That was the thing, like, of all the problems with Loki, I loved that we got away from this mid-range tech slop nonsense. I think the game is much more fun when you are trying to build specific sandcastles and go as tall as you can. So you're hearing me say that, and you're like, you just said Juggernaut's the best tech card in the best card in the game, and he's not a build your own sandcastle. He is, that sandcastle is getting obliterated. So that's because as they've nerfed these key tech cards, they didn't nerf every single tech card. I think Second Dinner is at a interesting sort of crossroads where they have to really think, all right, we've made a lot of these sort of onesie twosie changes in the last OTA. It's like, we're gonna nerf Mercury a little bit. We're gonna take a point off Cosmic Ghost Rider. Shang-Chi's not around. Like, there was so long where everybody would say that, if Shang-Chi didn't do exactly what he did, it would just be chaos. And he's been gone. Enchantress has been gone essentially for quite some time now, and it's been fine. But that's because they didn't remove every tech card. When you nerf some of the tech cards, but it's not launch month anymore, and Second Dinner has been creating tons and tons and tons of cards, people are going to flock towards the remaining tech cards that are still good or can fill a similar role. Shang-Chi at 4/3, it just isn't worth it to use 4 cost to blow up Human Torch. Even a nerf Shadow King at 3 costs can do that job better. Mercury can do that job better. Cosmic Ghost Rider shuts down 2 cards instead of just 1. People are going to move away, and what they have done is move away from these tech cards that are nerfed into uselessness and said, what else is there? You know what's there and really great right now? Juggernaut, Cosmo. Heck, even Mercury is getting played with just how good Move is. So in short, when you nerf some tech cards, but not the others, people are going to look and say, I don't like this card anymore. I still want something to kick down a sandcastle. What's left? And Juggernaut is there to really fill that void. It doesn't care about whether it's an ongoing card that's coming down, like Enchantress. Enchantress only works against ongoing cards. It doesn't care if it has green power, like Shadow King does. It doesn't care, in most cases, what its text says because it's moving out of location like Cosmic Ghost Rider. It doesn't care if it's more or less than 10 power like Shang-Chi. Like, Juggernaut just says, if you want cards to be here to win the game, and especially if you have priority, I am making sure that's not the case. Alioth would shut down Juggernaut if he didn't have priority. Alioth's not being seen as much because of repeated nerfs to him too. After all the, you basically threw all the tech cards into an arena, and Shang-Chi used to have a bazooka, and you kind of took the bazooka away, and it's like, hey, you're going to use a tennis racket now, and Juggernaut's just like, yo, okay, Shang-Chi, you just knocked all these other ones around. It's the king of the castle in there. So, in short, if you don't full-on remove tech, if they don't go in a direction where they say, okay, all of these cards, all of the feels bad tech cards, not clog, all of the sandcastle destroyers, what are we doing with them holistically? Are we removing them? Are we reverting the very concept of what it means to be a tech or counter card in this game? Because if they don't go that route, and that's a difficult route to go, people are going to continue flocking towards the better tech cards, the ones that still remain, and Juggernaut is far and away at the top of that list in this current meta. The other major component here is that, I'm talking about how many situations Juggernaut is very good into. Like, the Juggernaut can answer so many of the situations by the current meta. What is Juggernaut very weak to? Well, the biggest thing, and this is obvious, but it bears discussing when we're talking about trying to make a case for why Juggernaut is the best card in the game. Juggernaut wants to move away cards from a location on turn 6. So you're either knocking that into the location that you're obviously going to win, or just into a location the opponent's already going to win already, and you don't care because you're trying to just steal this one location to win the game. Well, you cannot do that if the board is full, or if there's so many cards that you can't move away the opponent's final big turn play. The good news is that we are not in a flood the board meta. We're not seeing a lot of Zoo right now. We're not in a meta where it's like, hey, let's get Shanna, Kazara, Blue Marvel, and then Gilgamesh and Squirrel Girl on turn 6, and the whole board's flooded, and look at me and big. That's not happening right now. We're not seeing Swarm. We're not seeing the kind of bullseye discard list where it's like, let me get a bunch of cheap swarms to do my little bullseye afflict move, or just fill things up that way. Silver Surfer is getting a little bit of a resurgence right now. There was a great deck that was going around from Mills Snap Academy YouTube. I saw it in a really great video from Pulse Glazer over at Snap Judgments. That Surfer list, very cool. It is not running Brood. Cerebro 2 did not win the World Championships in Marvel Snap and the Golden Gauntlet, so it's not the popular Cerebro list that's going around right now. We're not seeing these major flood the board decks. I do want to acknowledge that Thanos Arishem came in second place at the Golden Gauntlet World Champs. It's still very early. That only happened, less than 2 days ago at the time of recording this. We have to see if Thanos comes back in a big way. Thanos isn't the best matchup, especially if it gets all of its stones. But if you're playing a 34 card deck or whatever, maybe he's not drawing all those stones. I did just want to acknowledge that and make that clear. The kinds of decks that we do see a lot of are decks where people want to play a few cards, and oftentimes they're playing something big on the end at the final turn of the game. So even if they are trying to, they've got their board in a certain situation, you're trying to move 1 or 2 cards, not all 4 in a location, and then the other 2 locations each have 2 apiece. You can be pretty confident that the cards you're moving are not going to have a huge impact on the board state, especially if they are unrevealed because you have priority going into it. There are decks like, Sauron Supergiant stuff where you're playing a big card turn. There's a lot of experimentation with Man Spider where you're trying to place a Taskmaster in a specific location, or place an Arnim Zola. There's the backup plans of a lot of Storm War Machine Legions where you're just trying to play Galactus First Steps and other big guys. There's any deck that wants to play a couple of big cards ongoing. Great example, I want to play an Iron Man or get my Spectrum down in the right spot. Any deck that wants to play, tempo stuff out, 1 or 2 cards a turn, is going to fold to Juggernaut if you are playing well. We're not in a meta where people are trying to flood the board. So you've got these 2 axes here where tech cards have been dismantled across the board, but there are still a few tech cards they haven't touched. And as they try to destroy and get rid of more tech cards, but they don't do it all at once, people are looking at and wanting to flock and trying to find solutions with the tech cards that remain in order to protect their own game plan and not just do singular sandcastle builds. I would love it if Living Tribunal was great right now, but it is too susceptible to Juggernaut. It is too susceptible to that kind of tech. Same with the Splat list, where you're trying to make these giant, I got my Prodigy combo with Onslaught, and I'm making this big Mr. Fantastic, and it's 176 power, and the other 2 lands, look at me. Too easily disrupted by Juggernaut. Tech cards have been slowly nerfed over time, but because they haven't done it all at once, people are back and looking for the tech cards that remain, and Juggernaut is the absolute best of them. And then again, we are not in a meta where there's a lot of very powerful decks that are filling up entire locations or filling up all of their locations going to turn 6. So Juggernaut's condition of needing to move away cards to win the game is largely still in effect. So thank you for coming to my rundown. I feel very strongly about Juggernaut being the best in the biz right now. Get him in your decks, and let's go over and take a look at a couple of decks that you can try with Juggernaut today. Okay, let's talk about some great decks that run Juggernaut. Over here is the list I'm affectionately calling Move Punk. This is the list I used for about 90-95% of my Climb to Infinite this season. Phenomenal list. Juggernaut is just the icing on the cake here. This is the list that Sizer cooked up. This is the move list that was running around last month in October and even before that, where he made the decision to swap out Aranya for Spider-Punk, which I very much agree with. If you don't have Spider-Punk, Aranya is a fine inclusion here. But yeah, this deck embodies the core Juggernaut game plan. Is maybe my favorite home for Juggernaut, where your goal is to win one location with a massive amount of points. Ideally, in a perfect situation, you've got a big Human Torch that's safe behind a Cosmo. That is a card that is non-interactable in that location unless somebody's playing Magneto, which not really happening right now. And then you are able to steal another location with Juggernaut and your nicely statted cards like a Cloak or a Craven, Ghost Spider. You got Spider-Punk out there. Maybe you're even in the Hellion location if things get crazy. This deck so easily embodies the idea of get big one place, steal Juggernaut with another, because eventually they're going to give up on that Human Torch location, and they might be leaving that pretty empty depending on where you're at in the game. And then it is very easy to just say, oh, you thought you weren't going to play your cards where Human Torch was? Juggernaut just knocked them all away over into there. Sorry, hope you're okay with that. I just have 4 cubes now. It can be brutal. Now, if you're like me and you watch a lot of the awesome Marvel Snap content creators out there that make deck videos, you might have noticed something with Move. You might have noticed that recently this list is being posted with Aranya back in and Juggernaut removed. I haven't seen any commentary as to why Juggernaut's being taken out of these lists and this list is being put out there as the best, the top of the tier list type thing without Juggernaut. I feel very strong that is not the case. And then in one particular video, they're talking about this deck, again, without Juggernaut in it, with Aranya swapped back in, they're making the sort of criticism about the list that although it's very strong, people might just be able to play around it by avoiding the Human Torch location. They're saying, oh, Human Torch is such an obvious lane winner that a smart opponent can just avoid that and focus on the other 2 locations. And that the difficulty for your opponent comes in with trying to figure out where Human Torch is going to be so they can avoid investing there. That's true if you're not running Juggernaut. We have this solved. I'm listening to that being like, why are we talking about this like it's a problem? We don't need Aranya in this list. We don't need to get greedy and keep trying to make Torch even bigger. We're creating that problem by running Aranya over Juggernaut. What we should be doing is, to counter that point, the idea that, oh, an opponent can beat this list by just avoiding Human Torch. Sure, they can try, but if we can steal a location with Juggernaut on turn 6, that problem goes away and this list continues to be as powerful as I know it can be. So if you take one thing away from this video, if you want to try getting into Move, do not play this list with Aranya over Juggernaut. Keep Juggernaut in this list. Again, if you don't have Spider-Punk on the season pass right now, Aranya is a fine inclusion, although I do think Spider-Punk is very good. I would not recommend including Vulture in this list. I just recently did like a 40-minute deep dive on just this list before Spider-Punk came out. Video will be in a pinned comment or description below, so check that out. A lot of good information there. But yeah, Move Punk is fantastic. I love this deck. Juggernaut is the star of the show as usual in here. Him and Human Torch are such an ideal pairing. That's one quick aside. I love how we get those kind of like unusual Marvel pairings in here. Like if you're in lower series, like Carnage and Bucky Barnes go great together, and like how the original Fantastic Four cards have like no real synergy with each other. Quick aside, that is very fun in the game. Let's talk about another list that's great for Juggernaut. Victoria Hand. There is a lot of innovation in the Victoria Hand space right now. We're seeing stuff like the Agony combination coming in, and I've seen people playing Quake in this list, but I have chosen to embrace Juggernaut here. Reason being is that Victoria Hand has a very sort of, if you're drawing right, an on-rails game plan. You want to get the hood, as an example, you want to get the hood down turn 1, you want to get Victoria Hand down turn 2, you want to trigger the Victoria Hand, and then on turn 4 you want to play Misery to get on the hood to get additional stuff. That's like your ideal dream draw situation, but that's still, that line is very, very powerful. There's cleanup and stuff you can do on turn 5, But then Juggernaut comes in on turn 6, and unless Shadow King can very cleanly answer your problem, Juggernaut can be paired with 2 10-power demons from the hood, a cheapened Iron Patriot card with the help of Quinjet, a Miraged card, stuff from your Moon Girl. There are so many cheap, impactful cards. Heck, even just your second Victoria hand to start boosting stuff up other created cards on the board. Juggernaut is such a perfect turn 6 play. Victoria hand can afford and wants to run tech in a lot of cases because its power from Victoria hand is ongoing. So Shadow King's fine in here, and Juggernaut does incredible as well. This is a fantastic place for it. Again, I would recommend this construction over the one with Quake, just because Juggernaut's going to be able to steal more 4 and 8 cube game wins from you on days where it's not the hot location. Quake's the queen of hot locations, but I will say I did hit infinite using that move punk list, and a good portion of my climb was during the Nexus hot location. Juggernaut does just fine winning the Nexus too. Last but certainly not least, I want to talk about this list running Juggernaut. This is the Storm War Machine Legion package. I saw this in a video from KM Best. I forget who is the creator of this. Maybe it was ACP. I forget the name. I apologize. But I love this take on Storm War Machine Legion. The other popular deck before this started coming out was running things like the Blink, Electro, Jubilee sort of ramp and switch package to really try to rotate into this combo. This deck says, hey, sometimes I'm going to be able to snap you and get 2 or 4 cubes regardless, because it's essentially impossible to beat Storm War Machine Legion. Every deck wants to play cards on turn 6. You having an access to a turn 6 when your opponent doesn't is crazy. But in games where you're not getting this full combo, in games where you're just getting Storm, you can lock things down. You can actually play Juggernaut on turn 4 here and win that location. If you're playing, Storm into War Machine, you have access on turn 6 to be able to play Juggernaut, Ebony Maw, Hydra Bob. You've got Herbie down on the board, so you're buffing other locations. You're giving stuff a little bit of an extra boost, so you can then surprise steal a location with Juggernaut that way. Sometimes you just throw down the Infinite. That's fun too. But I love the different options that you have in this list, and Juggernaut is great here, and not even just on a turn 6 play. I love Juggernaut on turn 6 most of all. That's how you're really gonna, steal 4 cubes instead of 2 cubes after a snap. But this list, there's a lot more experimenting to be done with this. This feels incredible right now. And yeah, those are my thoughts on Juggernaut. Juggernaut is the best card in the game right now. I hope this was very helpful for you. I hope you're going to be able to go out there and start crushing the ladder, climbing to hit infinite, whatever your personal goals are for the season. Juggernaut's here to help you reach them. If you've made it this far, I really appreciate you watching all the way through. Please hit that subscribe button, that like button. We are a new Marvel Snap channel. I've been playing for since launch, but just started really doing the content creation thing this past couple of weeks. Been having a blast doing it. Please let me know in the comments what you think. Do you like this format with the slides and then a little bit of decks? Do you want to just see more gameplay? If you want to comment or have any questions about any of this, let me know. I'll reply to every comment. If you don't even want to talk about Marvel Snap, if you just want to talk about how great FLCL is, how great Cyberpunk Edgerunners is, how funny Always Sunny in Philadelphia is, especially those early seasons. Season 7's great. Hit me up in the comments and we can talk. All jokes aside, thank you very much for sticking around. Juggernaut, best card in Marvel Snap right now. I'm Kicker of Elves, and I will see you next time. Thank you. Bye.